Ah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin our session, which is Women in Architecture in India, changing the historical canon. And the presentation would be given by architect Madhavi Desai. Madhavi Desai is an architect, researcher, writer, and a teacher. She was an adjunct faculty at SEPT University, Ahmedabad during 1986 till 2018. She has had research fellowships from ICSSR and Sarai, Delhi, and the Aga Khan Program for Islamic Architecture, MIT, and the Getty Foundation, USA. She is a co-founder of Women Architects Forum, and more recently, the Feminist Collective in Architecture. She is the author, and editor of 7 books on Indian architecture. The topic becomes relevant basically when we are trying to search that what kind of contributions we should come with a general gender neutrality, and also we have to see that like how the women are going to be contributing and they're going to become the equal partners in the entire process. Though the foundation were laid even in a prior to independence, but at the same point of time, this progress of basically participation of women into the architectural practice was limited, and naturally because of the socio-cultural phenomena which was present and which also today also is present to a certain degree, we have seen that the women have to actually struggle a lot in order to basically establish their own position. And that is not only true for architecture, possibly it is true for all the fields whereupon we are looking at it. But at the same point of time, uh, I think the time has come whereupon they have arrived. Madhaviji would be actually elaborating that in a bigger way. But as a President Council of Architecture, I have realized that we have now every architecture school would have actually 60% or a bit more number of girls who are becoming architects. But when we look at it as to what happens after that, as such, maybe 10 years prior to today, the percentage were very, very less. So even if we look at how many architects are registered, even the passing percentage of the women and the registration with Council of Architecture, there was a gap. This is number one. And the second thing which was happening around is that those who are registering, who are coming into the exclusive architectural practice also was very, very less as compared to their male counterparts. Now, this is a situation whereupon possibly when we talk about the construction industry, the scenarios keep on becoming very, very sort of the complex, and it is said that the site works, etc., for women handling that is a problem. Today, I see a change happening around. I also, last 5 years, in fact, it is a very, very welcome change whereupon the women are opening their offices in a big way. And I see that like they are equally basically participating into the entire scenario. Possibly the family structures are also such that now the support systems are established. Not that the women should actually aspire for that, or is not the greatness of the men that they would be supporting the women, because both are equal. But at the same point of time, now that kind of awareness is rising gradually, and so whereupon like Madhaviji would be actually throwing a light in terms of how the scenarios have happened up till now as such, and then what is the future course. So I hand it over to you, Madhaviji.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking IIC, Shubhra, Tandanji, and the whole team for inviting me here and giving me this prestigious platform. Yesterday, I attended the Women in Media panel discussion, which was excellent. But what really struck me, two things struck me. One was the utter similarity of what the journalists, women journalists go through and what women architects go through. There are so many similarities. Of course, there are differences. And the other is women talked about their personal challenges. Like Nirja saying she had to come to feed the baby and go back to work and, whatnot. And I am a personal believer in the cliche, the personal became political for me. And that is how I got into this subject. So, I was very happy to find that yesterday. Now, you will wonder, why do we want to talk about women in architecture in India in the 21st century? And there are two answers to it. One is a short answer, which is simple, because as Abhayji said, they are invisible. And the long answer is more complex. And today I will try to delve into that complexity while at the same time celebrating the contribution of the women in Indian architecture for the last 9 decades. Now, there are several reasons for this happening. One is, first and foremost, the caste, class, religion, and gender, etc., are downplayed in knowledge production, especially in architecture in India. Second is we are very design oriented field. So we celebrate the star architects, read male architects, and also the institutions, the architectural institutions, do not pay enough attention to either data collection and interpretation analysis of it or research into the history, into the current affairs, etc. I think so. That is another reason. The third one is there is a lack of archives. Still, SEPT University started archives uh, about 10 years ago. We don't have archives of the early women architects and their work. At the same time, the women themselves did not realize how important they were in history. So a lot of the work is destroyed. When I was doing my book on women architects and modernism in India, I will be showing some of that here, but it was extremely difficult for me to find, photographs, drawings, other details. The fourth reason is the gender neutrality. Of course, the society and the professionals themselves believe that they are gender neutral and the built environment is gender neutral, which is not true. We do have, gendered spaces, but they remain not very visible since, it is many times intangible. So that is a fourth reason. And finally, the women themselves. The women architects want to be called architects. They don't want to be called women architects. Just like we found yesterday, women journalists don't want to be called women journalists. Though the truth is that gender does play a role, but especially the successful women do not they do not have the empathy to uh, care for women's issues. I'm sure there are exceptions, but mostly. And also, they have the fear of being called a feminist. And we all know the kind of interpretation feminism has, largely speaking, in India. It is highly misunderstood. People think it is, a Western concept. It is killing the marriages. It is against men, etc. So this is, as I said, just enough about trying to explain my title. My presentation has 4 parts. The first is a little bit about the context. The second is what I call the first generation of women architects, whatever I have been able to dug out. The second are the established practices. And no, the third. And the fourth is the young architects that Abhayji talked about who are really doing well. Okay. So I'm sure you all know these very famous master architects well known nationally and internationally, and their contribution to modern architecture in India is immense, and we are not downplaying that. At the same time, these are the early women architects. So, my question when I was doing my book was who were they and why were they written out of history? I think students of architecture as well as professionals hardly know any. Maybe people in the north, Chandigarh and Delhi, sorry, know about Yuli Chowdhury, and maybe in Gujarat we know about Gira Sarabhai, and in Mumbai they know about uh, no Shimul. They know it's established. Anyway, so this was one of my very important question. Also, we have this whole legacy of male dominance in the building field. So before colonial times, we had the whole legacy of craftsmen and tradespeople doing construction work, and the vernacular architecture was created by people themselves. But traditionally, women have always contributed, like in the interiors, in the decorating, etc. But they were never given, they were again invisible. So when we talk about pottery, we talk about the potter or the carpenter or the ironmonger. But, his support system and the women's support system is not recognized. In the post colonial times, we again have power in the hands of the uh, male architects. So, if you look at the media, uh, very often males are, you see the ad at the left bottom. Males are associated with, tall buildings and successful architecture. And we have some of these, the upper photographs are from the Indian Institute of Architects. And you can see where are the voices of the women architects. Of course, things are changing, but a bit slow for my view. Again, I'd like to stress that a few successful women architects are taken as evidence. So there are evidence that there are no barriers to women's acceptance. So we have these 10 very successful women architects who are called everywhere, they give talks, they are on the juries, etc. But that does not mean that the lower bottom need help. So, why women architects have not gathered critical mass? I think I may be wrong, but from yesterday I figured that the women journalists probably by now have gathered critical mass. But one of the reason, of course, the erasure I talked about, but the other is that it is not easy to have individual practice for men or women in architecture. Unless, you are a son of some successful architect or you are rich or you have good network, it's very difficult. And we have found, I was just talking to Rashmi earlier today, and lot of women drop out and they sometimes go into interior, filmmaking, furniture design, graphics, or they just end up bringing up children and then they cannot come back. It's very difficult to come back into the profession. There are lack of role models. I think we all need role models, and there has to be a tradition of mentoring, which has to be consciously introduced. Resistance to day-to-day experiences while handling male clients because in a patriarchal society, mostly the male have the money to commission. There are consultant developers and workers on site. In fact, workers on site, lot of women that I have interviewed or had questioned have talked about, as it is, if you have less confidence and then when you go to site, the workers don't pay any attention to you. They look at your male assistant then your confidence get affected. So it's kind of a vicious circle at times. But the most important is the low pay scales and the work-life balance. And I'm glad that yesterday also people referred to the work-life balance. So again, coming to women and architecture education, 1970s, you can see how many women students were there. From 1990s onwards, there is an increase. I think Abhay also talked about how many. So now there are 50, 60, 70%. And again, it's not reflected in the practice. In fact, when I ask my students to name a few women architects, they may name 5 in India and one Zaha Hadid. Zaha Hadid is the most and the only famous woman architect. So, again, we don't have time to go into this, but when I was younger and I started talking about these issues, they told me, no, no, ma'am, you're talking about social issues. But no, I think we are social beings who are professionals. So I have a whole theory about, what we can do at the architecture education level to smooth this, to get the women into mainstream, to make sure they don't drop out. There are also these misconceptions about the profession. Most women, most parents think, oh, my daughter is drawing and painting very well, Or in the society, we just talked about the whole need of having professional degrees to find good, suitable boys. So there are several reasons. But again, as I've written, a majority of successful women think I have had no issues. This misunderstanding creates lack of network support to women, lack of empathy, lack of sensitivity. That same lack of sensitivity trickles down into the difficulties of not, of course, the male laborer, but much more for the female laborer on construction sites. I know that in metros now the living conditions have improved, but what about the health of the children? What about the education of the children? I think much more work needs to be done in this area. In the Indian society, women have several identities, as we all know. So at one level, we are objects of desire. At the same time, we are revered as goddesses. Motherhood is, of course, put on a pedestal. And very often, when I was studying, Indira Gandhi was, used as a symbol of, oh, we don't need, women are as doing very well because we have a woman prime minister. I think it's important for me to point out here that women in India, of course, are not a homogeneous category. We are very heterogeneous, and we have to be conscious about the intersectionality of caste, class, religion, occupation, etc. Though for my presentation, I'm just going to talk about, generally. Women's movement in India. Again, the professionals I interviewed, most of them, at least 80% of them, had no idea about women's movement in India. This issue is not taught in schools of architecture. And I think it's important for men and women to know, what happened in history. So if you look at this, women not only in the late 19th century, early 20th century, not only lived in joint families, they lived in extended families. But, of course, things have changed, and now we are in a nuclear family, which has its own advantage and disadvantage. Women were inspired by Gandhi. I think this is so important that, because he was able to bring women out of the kitchen, out of the four walls, into the public realm, in the mass participation, in the freedom struggle. There were social and political changes which impacted women, and women took part in all this. They shared their jewelry. They spun their own clothes. This is Sarojini Naidu going to jail. And for me, I'm very touched by this, and I feel that the young people should also know where they are coming from. What is, especially today's generation. One thing was established in the colonial times, the importance of higher education. In Gujarat, we had the first women graduate, two sisters, in 1901. And this is my mother on the right hand side. She graduated in 1947. So, yes, the importance was there for education, but again, it was not for her economic or social independence, but it was for her to be a better wife and a better mother, generally speaking. In the post colonial times, women started joining different professions: medicine, law, education, science, other things. This was the same time here on the right hand side. We have, I am sorry, I'm not able to. We have Gira Sarabhai, young Gira Sarabhai talking about. So she was, of course, she belongs to the first generation. And in the 1930s, late 30s and 40s, women started joining the profession of architecture. They took hesitant steps. In one class, there would be 2 or 3 women in the Sir JJ in Mumbai. What I want to stress here is the development of high modernism almost parallels women's contribution. And they did contribute in one way or the other. So, what were the historic challenges of the first generation? Architecture was a new and young discipline. There was domination of engineering profession, which is probably still there. The patriarchal society and joint family system was strong. In joint family system, the individual choices would be limited or would be dictated by the head of the family. Great importance was attached to matrimony. If you were not married, then you were kind of nobody. Women working in the public realm was discouraged. There was lack of awareness of professional education, etc. Now, because of this reason, what I found through my research is that most of the early women architects belong either to the elite or to the upper classes. So, the first woman architect, to the best of our knowledge, was Perrin Mistry, belonging to a Parsi family in Mumbai. She joined her family firm, which was established by her father, Nicham Mistry, and later on Bhedwar. And she was not only a member of the IIA, but she was a member of the RIBA. When she was 10 years old, she went to England for high school. Then she came back and she became a student of Sir JJ. And she was married with 3 kids, but she used her maiden name for 50 years in professional life. And she was multi-talented. She had interest in music. She has interest in farming, sports, and all. She was there till 1989. But I myself did not know about her, or I myself was not aware of my own prejudices about not studying about women in architecture. So I feel so bad. I could have met her at least, before she passed away. These are some of her works. With great difficulty, I managed to get just these photographs. But she designed in the 1930s, 40s, she designed the state of the art Deco kind of buildings. This is a church that she designed in Mumbai. I think the church has been renovated now. But then we have Yoli Chaudhary in Chandigarh, who worked very closely with Le Corbusier. And not only that, she had her degree from Sydney in 1951. And She went to the US, she got a very good job, but when she found out that Corbusier was working on Chandigarh, she came back. And here you can see in the photograph, she's the only woman here in the team. And after independence, she was the first woman to head a state department of architecture. She did many buildings, mostly in Punjab. Again, she was not just a talented architect, but she was a teacher. I think she became the head of SPA for 4 or 5 years. She ran drama clubs. She designed furniture. She wrote in the newspaper. And she was married but divorced. And towards the end, when she got cancer, she said, "No, I don't want any treatment." She just decided and she passed away. So these are some of her projects. She used Corbusier's vocabulary, but I mean, eventually it was her own contribution. She changed it. Some more of her buildings. I think each of these early woman architect needs a book to really, for people to know what they did. Gira Sarabhai from Ahmedabad, belonging to the illustrious Sarabhai family. She never got married. She lived for, as you can see, from 98 years. And that means she saw a whole century. Here she is with Buckminster Fuller, and the Darshan apartments below there was known to be multi-story first high-rise or multi-story apartments in Mumbai. She never went to College of Architecture. She trained with Frank Lloyd Wright for 6 years in Arizona. And she was a visionary and an institution builder. She designed and curated the Calico Museum. She had also had a graphic design agency. And she had the first textile design studio, etc. And extremely talented person, but a recluse. And she never, I mean, I tried to interview her, but it did not work out. And also, she refused to call herself an architect. She said, "I'm a designer." This is the Calico Dome done by her with, of course, Buckminster Fuller. In the upper right corner is the extension to Vikram and Mrinalini Sarabhai's house, where you can see it was an extension, but you can see the impact of Frank Lloyd Wright's principles. And she was very instrumental in the National Institute of Design. She helped them design it. Towards the end, towards the 1980s, she dropped modernism or principles of modernism, and she started using these old wooden facades and houses to recreate for, contemporary functions. Praveena Mehta in Mumbai, I had heard about only her when I was in school. She had a master's degree from USA. She practiced with Hema Sakaria in Mumbai for a few years. She was very accomplished. If you see, these are some of her projects where she, of course, used concrete, but she tried to have, craftsmen, Indian craftsmen, contribute to the buildings. But her most important contribution was New Bombay, the whole concept of New Bombay, which she came up with Charles Correa and Shirish Patel. And even the Kanchenjunga apartments, which we credit to only Charles Correa, she was an associate architect, which is, you may not be able to read it, but it is there in the on the left-hand side bottom part. Hema Sakaria, again, she has, only recently some research has come out that she has done about 54 projects, which I didn't know about. But she established, with Vaina Modi, she established the Contemporary Arts and Crafts, India's first contemporary lifestyle store. And she was a hardcore teacher. She taught for many years, first in Mumbai and then in Pune, almost till the end of her life when she got cancer and passed away. So this is a house she designed with Pravina Mehta, her mother's house. And I personally like it very much. I think it's an early modernism, good example of early modernism. She also did many projects in Navi Mumbai and in, which I not got here, but in Bhopal and Indore and in Madhya Pradesh. She also worked with Charles Correa on some projects. So, if I were to interpret what these people did, the early women, one is that I would like to say that whether they did good architecture or not many buildings, what etc., they were really instrumental in paving the way for the rest of us to follow. Extremely important, and therefore I think that they need again to be in some proper historical book. They had the privilege of background, and I think that is what helped them develop a career. But almost all of them were visionary, rebellious, multi-talented, and non-traditional. Because if you see at that time, uh, as I said before, the matrimonial and being in a traditional setup was very important. So you can imagine, what all resistance they had to go through to reach where they did. Now, coming to the established contemporary practices, these are all very well-known women who have done so well. Abha Narayan is at the forefront of conservation. Revati Kamath has done revolutionary work. She unfortunately passed away. Chitra Vishwanath in sustainable architecture, and Anupama Kundu, of course, is now an international name. What I want to say is that there are still very few single practices of the time period I'm talking about. This is my generation, and maybe a little bit younger to me. We went through school in late 1960s and early 70s, and these are the women who started practicing after that. The husband and wife model was very important, because then you could juggle the work-life balance, etc. But in the mainstream, it was still difficult for people to get larger projects and urban scale engagements. Very often, women get pushed into interior work or residencies, things like that. A lot of them have joined conservation and preservation. Some of them are part of the activism and community involvement. And I will quickly go through some of these women. I know there are many that I would have missed. Brinda Somaya is absolutely at the forefront. She had started her practice with her sister. So they were called Somaya Kalappa, but the sister migrated to Europe, and so she has had a single headed practice. She started her work in a garage behind her house, and now she has about 300 projects to her credit. Her daughter has recently joined her 10 years ago, so now they are Somaya and Sampath. Mm, they've done exhibitions, restoration, institutions, educational institution, commercial work, you name it and they've done it. Lata Raman from Kochi practices with her husband Jai Gopal. I don't know how much you know here, but I think we are very ignorant of the good work coming out of Kerala. And I'm afraid it's mainly because of I don't know what you think, but mainly because of the tourism. But they are young women, older practices, they are reinterpreting the vernacular in the, very in a good way, using the vernacular principles and coming up with contemporary resorts and other things. So, what I've listed on the left-hand side are some of her design principles. Shimul Javeri, very well known, again, a very successful practice. She has recently taken 3 young girls as partners. So, she's very conscious of, kind of handing over her work to the younger generation, which is not very common. And she has again done a lot of work all over India. She started her practice in her own bedroom, and she is married to Rahul Kadri, who also has, his father has a practice, but she refused to join the father-in-law and the husband, and she came up on her own. Sujata Shankar is a soft-spoken, small-scale architect in Chennai. She's not just, she's, connected with Intech, and also is very active in the cultural scene. And, as you can see from her, this project, uh, she disrupts the grid and breaks down, and this is the second home of Mani Ratnam. Vandana Ranjit Singh from Mumbai, who recently lost her husband, but they were practicing together. Vandana has also been teaching at KRVI, she's very low key, but she has done some excellent institutions. Anjali Yagnik in Bangalore, she has done large projects. Her husband passed away about 10 years ago, but she has complete control of the practice. And she has clients who are coming back, repeat clients, which is a good compliment. Sonali Bhagwati from Delhi has, kind of global practice with her husband, very successful. Auroville. Auroville is, as you know, a kind of an island in Ahmedabad, but there are so many women architects over there who are doing excellent work, and these are just 2 of them. Some women who have gone into conservation, Meenakshi Jain was a pioneer, and she's done a lot of work in Rajasthan. She unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Gurmeet Rai of Delhi, again doing excellent work, mostly in Punjab and the north of India. Shikha Jain, a very young architect who is not just doing architecture, but is involved with UNESCO and doing all kinds of curating work. 2 projects are by women who are not what we call the standard mainstream practice. This is Pratima Joshi in Pune. She runs this organization called Shelter Architects, in which they do the low-cost housing, but very successful in many parts of Maharashtra. Neera Adarkar is also again an architect who writes and who is also an activist, is also an educator. She and a group of others started the CEA school of architecture in Mumbai. So again, what were the social and design interpretation? And so I feel that they were the beneficiaries of political reform, women's movement, and modernity, modern education during the second half of the 20th century. They are trailblazers. So if the earlier generation was the ones who kind of set us up, these are the ones that really made good inroads. So these we have been in practice for successful practice for some 25 to 30 years. Now, I would like to say that the families, even in the first generation, and this is what I call second generation, the families, ethos of the families and education, etc., was very important. And here also I found that most of the ones belong to, if not upper class, at least the upper middle class. Because again, the kind of awareness, the money, etc., that goes into education and setting up your practice is not available to everybody. I also want to say that, we should not look at this from just the metro or the urban areas. The second and the third tier towns, the large villages, etc., are, we are not even talking about what kind of problems they face. Many times I have found that from girls from some small towns who get education in big cities and they come to do jobs here, it's culturally very difficult for them to adjust. So there are all kinds of issues which we need to address. So also at that time in the 60s and the 70s, the families brought up, if you are in the south, as you know, everybody learned either to sing or to dance. So same thing in other parts. All the girls while growing up had to do either dance, music, dramatics, something. So they became, in a sense, they became multi-talented, or at least they understood a lot of things. So these, I think, are some of the reasons why they became successful. And when I make presentation in the West, they are always surprised because many successful women in the West are divorced or they don't have children. And so when I say that, no, most of these women manage to have a family life, they are generally surprised. But we all know how difficult it is. And in terms of their designs, they were modernists, they had modernist education, but I think a lot of them did not copy Western solutions. They struggled to arrive at an Indian consciousness of design, and they transcended the modernist banalities and established their own identities. Plus, very importantly, they were plural and fluid in their professional work. So some of them wrote, they did design related research or pure research. They went for juries in architecture education institutions. So they are all, very much connected in many ways to architecture. And the last but not the least are the young women, which are not in my book, but I have included them for this presentation. Haritha is from Kerala. She was Mickey's and my student at SEPT. Now, again, she's also carrying out the tradition of what I talked about, the good Kerala architecture. And one thing I forgot to mention is that Laurie Baker and his influence is very strong in Kerala. And, you may see them interpreting that in many ways. Rosie and Sridevi in Bangalore, they did this project in Kerala, and again they tried to reinterpret the cultural or the vernacular influence in contemporary design. Surabhi and Ramakrishna in Bangalore. Now, I also want to say that how the things have changed. So, a lot of the women are getting together. Like we have these two women here, two women there. Sometimes there are a group of women or a group of men and women who are pulling their resources. How do you deal with to setting up difficult architectural practices? So they come together, so there is a difference in that. Naomi Parikh is from Ahmedabad. She's a very sensitive designer. In her case, her mother is also an architect, and that has impacted her. But she tries to, use the craftsman as much as possible. Takveer, Hyderabad, you know her?
Yeah.
Yeah. But Okay, so when I heard about Takwir and I saw her work, I suddenly realized I don't have any Muslim women architects in my book. In fact, I hardly know any. And I think we need to deal with this issue of, what is happening to them. And in her questionnaire, I had sent her a questionnaire. She talked about being not just the minority, but the burqa wearing minority, and how she has to face all kinds of difficulties in her practice. She's one of the person who is using, AI and digital art, etc. She's very, these are the models, and this is something she created in the art and design biennale that happened in Lal Killa in Delhi. Excuse me. But she, um, but I was very happy to, get in touch with her. Swati Janu, I don't know if you heard of her, from New Delhi. She is a farmer's daughter and had, socio-economic challenges, and she has overcome them. She's doing these kind of very interesting projects. She also curated the women architects exhibition at the Lal Killa. She's working, she's an activist, she works with, many challenges, and she's very young. So, I was very happy to again meet her. Sandhya Janardhan in Mumbai, I did not know her till she got the Rupp Prize from the University of California at Berkeley. And I'm on the nominating committee. And then I heard about her and, like, why do I not know about her? And she again is comes from a lower middle class family and had economic challenges. And her parents sold a lot of things to give her a higher education. And now she works with um, housing for the low cost housing for marginalized communities. And here you can see the kind of methods she's using on the lower right hand side corner, kind of user participation in design when coming up with housing. And one thing very important she said in her questionnaire is that I want to design a space where I would not mind staying. You don't make kachra housing for just low because it's low cost, and hopefully she's able to achieve it. So the present generation that Abhayji talked about, um, in the 21st century, there have been tremendous changes in social, physical, and infrastructure level. So one thing is that if you travel, there are in certain cities there are whole floors restricted for women, so women feel comfortable. This is just one example I know, but many things have changed. The parents now, middle class parents, because they have probably have say two girls, they allow the girls. I know people in Ahmedabad who send their girls to Bangalore to do a job, which would not have happened in last century. The young women themselves are more ambitious than ever before, with far greater awareness of their career paths and better sense of self-worth. I think it's very important, the self-worth, because if you don't have them, it's very easy to get, lack of confidence, to be pushed aside. They are freer in their movements and their thoughts. They are beginning to delay marriage and have children for the sake of their careers. Many belong to the middle class or even the lower middle class, which would not have happened again. And I showed some examples of. They are multidimensional and they have a lot of confidence. And again, they have had significant encouragement by both there. So I feel that, there is, yes, there is good hope But I think we really need to, at all levels, we need to support women in architecture in India and not just call it family problem or social problem. Now, at the cost or at the risk of immodesty, I'm going to show a few slides of my work in. So, this is the Women Architects Forum, which a group of us, it's always a collective, a group of us began in 1991. Here, we had the first conference in Ahmedabad, and we had gone to see Gira Sarabhai to get inspiration from her. But the forum didn't last. It's kind of died in 5 years. We tried to have, we had little meets and, presentations and things. But people told me we were ahead of our times, perhaps. And also, sorry. Also, people told me that all of us took something back from whatever the experience we had. Then recently, in just when COVID was there or was ending, 5 of us on the upper light, in which includes my husband Mickey Desai, who is sitting here, we started this feminist collective in architecture, and it is a struggling kind of NGO. We have not taken any institutional support to become independent, to remain independent, but we are, we have the financial challenge and we have all kinds of other challenges. But we have had 3 very successful national events. So in 2022, 2023, and we also have some of these activities throughout the year. Filming, screening of films, individual talks, reading sessions, walks, etc., etc. And recently, this year, we had the third annual in the Mill Owners Building in Ahmedabad on built environment, design, and gender. So, Feminist Collective in Architecture is trying to not only empower women architects who are struggling, but also we are looking at women and space. And it's, of course, another whole another area, but from the public spaces to one's homes, spaces are gendered, there is discrimination, and we need to again look at that and work on it. In the art, architecture, and design BNL that I talked about, I put this with Swati Janu, I put this timeline together on history of feminist efforts in Indian architecture. And here is my book, which of course has many limitations, but I feel that I began one conversation. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much, Madhavi ji. Is in a span of about 48 minutes, you are capable of showing the entire sort of landscape of women in architecture. And naturally, few things which are very noticeable is that the first generation of the women architects, and few of them actually would not also classify as the architects in that sense. For example, there is a great contribution which has been done by the DD contractor. Now, whether that was there. Another interesting thing which is happening around is that there are these Gira Sarabhai, of course you have mentioned, and Gira Sarabhai has a lot to contribute. In a sense that one of the reasons of Corbusier basically getting stabilized at India happens to be Gira Sarabhai. Now that is how the things they keep on happening around, and these are very, very powerful sort of ladies at that point of time. And possibly they also would have faced the gender bias, but at the same point of time, their will and their wittiness was such that at that point of time, she goes to, of course, that financial support was there, but family was there to support. But she also was very, very much, willing to basically go and be with the Frank Lloyd Wright and maybe do the informal schooling in architecture and then come back and then actually start. She was practicing with her brother, I believe, and getting the coming back to India and then trying to put up across Buckminster Fuller in India, try to get Frank Lloyd Wright in India, try to get Corbusier in India, and so on and so forth. I mean, and establishing the first design school, national this design school at Ahmedabad is basically has been done not in terms of architecture but in terms of actually working out its nitty gritties and getting the professor design chairs and the people across the world to come there and strengthen the bond. And this is something which was
She also contributed
yes
to architecture.
yeah. See, she also contributed to of course. Okay, so
Contribution.
yeah, so that this is something which is happening around. Then we look at what is happening with the. Of course, I mean we have so many of them. They were also, as she has rightly said, she has put it up across that they were also into social reforms, participated into basically national freedom struggle, even to the point that jailed also. I mean,
Ravina Mehta.
Ravina Mehta was also jailed and then went to the US and then received her studies and maybe came back at that point of time. We look at Yuli Chaudhary. Yuli Chaudhary is actually such a stalwart figure. I came to know that she was the only sort of interpreter with the Corbusier who was actually capable of interpreting in terms of
She spoke
conversation.
French.
French. So she was actually interpreting. So when even Prime Minister of India, and she is that kind of a strong, and of course one lady architect who was also the chief architect of basically Punjab and then Punjab and Haryana. I mean like that kind of a thing. So she has influenced. And today if I look at and certain names possibly which would basically come, Sana Malik for that matter. Now Sana Malik is an architect. Sana Malik is also a sitting MLA in Maharashtra Assembly as such, and we need such kind of influences whereupon they are capable of actually understanding the true sort of a voice. Not only about the women I'm talking about, I'm talking about also the architects. I mean, so she is capable of mixing it. Interestingly, few things which are happening around is that across India, and I think it is also the same kind of a thing applies to the entire world, is that out of the 10 graduating architects, 4 are seriously into architecture practice. Now so maybe possibly that kind of a ratio also is applicable to women. But at the same point of time, if we look at how are they capable of diversifying themselves as such, so I look at the ladies who are because of their training and because of their, I would say, sort of a genetic composition, let us say, that for generations together, possibly they were looking at the household and they were looking at the organizing of the spaces and they were looking at the economy, and possibly, so these are the greatest advantages. So invariably, majority of these women architects, they are into basically either the conservation, they are also into the sustainability, and they perform in a sustainability in a much better fashion. That is a fact. I mean, if we look at it, of late I'm observing that the change is really happening. I'm into academics for last almost 38, 40 years. I have seen the generations basically going not only maybe in my school across India, and I find out that the level of confidence and the level of demand, because one has to be demanding. So it is not that is we are talking about what is a gender and this person would talk or that person would talk. No, they are demanding. They want the things to happen. They are much more serious. They are much more dedicated, and this is something which actually is going to change the entire scenario. So the activity for which all are looking at, that the women need their sort of a place, they need their rightful share of maybe professional practice, they need their rightful respect as such. I think all these things are happening very rapidly. In academics, if we look at it as such, we would find out that now we have many lady professors, thinkers, researchers who are carrying out their work in a much serious fashion, and that really is a sort of a lesson to be learned from them by their male counterparts. This absolutely is very clear. Of late, they are also coming up as the vice chancellors of the universities. They are occupying the positions at a higher level. And maybe the number presently seems to be less, but at the same point of time, in the days to come, you would find out that, because finally the proportion which is coming in architecture also has to be reflected into the profession. So that kind of a scenario would be certainly happening around. Of course, it has its price to be paid. Now, who pays the price is a different issue. Uh, it's not only about the women architects per se. As such, when both of them are equal as such, so naturally and unfortunately, the men could not conceive. I mean, so I think that like there could be a system which will be coming in whereupon you say that yes, a lady wants to delay sort of a family sort of a starting point, and that is perfectly fine. But at the same point of time, then there could be other possibilities. And I think the science is progressing in such a fashion whereupon we will be reaching that part also. Why one should suffer? I mean, if that is what it is. Nevertheless, I'm very sure that in the days to come, as such, the contributions are going to increase. It is not only about the women architects, it is across all the architects. It's not only about the architects, it is about the designers. It is about the creativity, and the participation is going to be increasing as such. The nation is going to need a lot of such efforts, and that is what is going to happen in the days to come. It is going to be a much, much more higher level of infrastructural development. It also has to be a responsible development, and then the contribution has to be immense, and it will be coming in. So let us hope that within few days, as such, we would have the big architectural establishments whereupon the women are heading, and because they are capable and they're capable of doing it, and they're capable of bringing that kind of a value proposition on a table, and that's what is going to happen. From the on behalf of Council of Architecture as such, wherever we are capable of supporting, we are very much there to support it. As you said rightly, that we are of a lack of a data, but of late as such, we are trying to collect certain data and try to analyze that how the things are happening around. So thank you very much for that enlightening talk. Only thing is that another, just that I was looking at it, and this Sunita Kohli again, that is another name which actually comes, though she is not an architect as such, but what she is carrying out is something which is near to architecture, because interior design could not be isolated from architecture. So technically she may not be architect, but at the same point of time, she was capable of also doing the big works which are expected, and also at a government recognition. So yes, they are there. They have arrived, madam. So there is a ray of hope that things are going to be better. Any questions are there? Please raise the questions to ma'am, and she is there to answer that.
That was a wonderful talk, and I think both of you did hear many such names that have done so much projects as their male counterparts. It is just because women have to be efficient than their male counterparts to be recognized as someone at par with the leading architects. I think change has begun, and we're going to see soon women dominating. Thank you.
Yeah, women dominating is fine. I mean, because sometimes, in a informal way as such, and in a joking fashion, I say that there seems to be a very, very great secret pact whereupon women are capable of having their secret language to communicate with each other, and that is a good thing to happen. If they lead as such, it is going to be a good thing to happen. I mean, it is perfect. They are much more balanced. They are much more capable of understanding things. They are much more compassionate. So I think good. Yeah. Can we pass on? Yeah.
So thank you, Madhavi, for that wonderful talk. I just wanted to ask you something. So usually when we think about architecture and the kind of photographs you showed, we think of really the form of the building and the public spaces, which was what we saw in the photographs. Now, I was wondering, have women architects made a difference to the organization of spaces inside the buildings? Or for that matter, public spaces, both the things. I mean, I'm just curious to know what difference did they make?
So, when I talk about women in architecture, this is one of the standard questions, do women design differently? And I would say that the jury is still out, because we all go through the same modernist education, there is no awareness of the gender, as I said, in most educational institutions. So, yes, I think women make a difference in some other ways. Like, we are more, we don't are so keen on the self. We are very good at collective leadership and more empathetic, generally speaking. So those are, but they are very intangible. And because of the lack of awareness, it has not impacted design as much as possible. So maybe intuitively they have made a difference, but I do not have an authority to say that they have. I feel that, if we, at the education level, if we run courses on maybe some of the feminist theories, we give design projects as design of a creche or a women's hospital or a women's hostel, or these are non-traditional design issues for the mainstream. So as Mickey was saying, we want to design a big hospital or a airport, or those are the general. So if we very slowly create awareness, have more women as part of the community design, have more interactions, if we do all this, then it will be much better. But I'm sorry, I cannot say yes right now.
Yeah, I think it would be like whether the gender really is going to make a difference in the creative decision, and there where it boils down to possibly then that yin and yang theory would start happening around. So there may not be that kind of thing, but there would be certain attributes which are very, very specific. So seriousness wise, the women would be more serious, generally saying again. In terms of the commitment, they would be more serious about it. In terms of the emotional content, they would be maybe more serious about it. But as you rightly said, that there has to be research which need to be carried out in this party.
Hello, and thank you for a very. Yeah, I'm Urmimala Sarkar. I am from JNU School of Arts and Aesthetics. I just retired from there and am a senior fellow at the Teen Murti at the moment. I just wanted to ask you, like, say, for instance, in research methods and everything, we identify certain things as feminist methods. How would one read an architecture through a feminist lens? Is there a possibility? Is it even taught? Because I don't know at all about this. That is why I'm asking.
I think your question is slightly similar to what Partho asked. So, again, as I said, because the word feminism and feminist theories are kind of rejected by the, especially in schools of architecture, we don't talk about it. That feminist reading kind of thing is really not taught, So again, as I said, if we could make some inroads slowly through different modules, even not full courses, but then I think it's not just for women, it's for men and women both to, just like we learn sustainability, climate issues, this is just actually part of the mainstream that we need to not ignore.
Yeah, hello. Just in extension to what we were discussing earlier. So what I feel, it's just a statement. Maybe you can share your insights into it. What I feel, a time today and tomorrow will definitely be more viable for women architects to join, because what I see that the NEP is also allowing us to be more flexible, to be more embracing research.
Who is allowing?
NEP 2020, New Education Policy 2020, also has certain areas where, like, they talk about inclusiveness, they talk about, in some multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary approaches, some flexible ways, multiple entry exits, where, like, women architects will have more opportunity to think about taking a professional course, in a serious manner. But what I see as a problem is that the awareness is a major issue, and the mindsets which the profession has generally, built up over the years, that needs to be broken. Because so many, as we were rightly saying, that women just disappear, and where do they go? They just end up doing, becoming housewives, or maybe just nobodies, or diversifying to doing things like interior decorators and not even designers, and some niche things, very obliquely different from what architecture would have promised. So I think research is one area which our country definitely requires, and we have to promote that, and we have to make them understand that this, because I mean definitely construction going on sites that may not have been on the cards, and that may not be that lucrative as a profession to adopt, but other allied things which come with architecture can definitely be embraced more in today's and time and in future. So that's just
No, I agree with you absolutely. I think for me, practice, research, and education form a completely balanced. But in India, we are, the practice heavy, and we have ignored the research part. And also saying including, for example, when I was working on my book on gender in the Indian city, I looked at the smart city agenda, and I was like searching for gender, and there was just like 1 or 1.5 sentence about it. No specification about how to do it or what. So it's again very disappointing when you have 100 smart cities and you spend crores of rupees, and this 50% of the population is ignored.
Yeah, in fact, it is more disturbing when smart cities do not have any kind of a mention about architecture, by and large.
Yes.
I have one question.
I have an observation, and the second part of what I'd like to say is something I'd like your opinion on. The observation is, yeah, I'm an architect. My name is Rajesh Luthra, and my observation is something which I take on from what was mentioned by Partho and Mrs. Sarkar uh, about gender playing a role into approach towards the approach of design. How a woman looks at a man is very different from how a man looks at a woman, and I guess that the gender differential also reads into how they read situations and how they look towards solving problems. And that's what we were trying to understand. I was trying to understand based on your answer to Partha and Mrs. Sarkar, that the approach of a female should be very different. I'm not saying it would be, but should be very different from a male approach towards a problem. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, society is run by men, and the standards are set by men. The institutions, as yet, are still determined by men. So women are judged on those parameters. The other thing I wanted to I wanted to mention was a more practical dimension, where we spoke about the inherent bias towards women in the practice of architecture. There are certain streams of advancement which are quite anonymous, if I may say so. The government projects, you fill in a tender, they don't care about your regional affiliation, your linguistic affiliation, your gender. You fill in the tender. It's either based on a technical prowess or it's based on your financial quotation, etc. The same thing, having worked with developers on condominium complexes, what we realized is that your standing is based on efficiency. Again, they don't look at gender there. They see what is the manner of efficiency that you have achieved based on the FAR, etc., how many apartments you deliver and things. And then I think there is the parity in some of these streams. When you deal with the private client, possibly they are looking more at the person than the solution. But there are streams where I would imagine a woman stands at par with a man.
If I may say so, in the tenders, very often you have to say how many crores how many crores of work you have already done, right? Many times to qualify into, Gurpreet will support me, you need to show that you have done a quantum of work. And if you are already struggling in your practice, as a typical woman might be, then it's very difficult to even get to the tendering stage. I mean, I would like other people's opinion on this since I'm not a practitioner.
So that I would imagine is for any first generation startup.
Yes,
right? I
probably
think
for
there's no differential there.
And also I would like to, again, when I was younger, I used to believe in man women equality. We don't need separate bus seats, we don't need, but now I realized that in the US there is the affirmative action, is that if you are a woman practitioner, you get certain government projects. If you are a minority or if you have only women employees, then you get more points and then you get certain projects. So that is just one example of how to, slowly move towards equality. But can somebody talk about please?
Not on this aspect, but I have another question, if I may ask. So, I know two architects closely. My name is Aditya Jain. I am a lawyer and a playwright. So, I know two women in my family, and both are architects. One is teaching at the School of Planning and Architecture. The other had to take up a corporate job. Reason being that there lack of avenues which are available. Someone who wants to independently practice architecture, or lack of research also, avenues for research within the country. So many years down the line, so many architects we've had, so many brilliant infrastructures we had. Why don't we have a program wherein these architects or other people who have from those backgrounds create better avenues for research, or for promoting research in this field, or opening up more avenues, so that people who are really interested do not have to go for the corporate jobs or teaching.
I think I will let Abhayji answer this because I'm just a small little woman architect with independent.
Yeah. That's fine. See, primarily, when we say that you are a lawyer, you said. So you would also say that like anybody who is coming out of a law school directly is not capable of starting with a practice. No, it doesn't happen. So, but for them also, the corporate employment seems to be a easier way. So there's nothing like a gender sort of a scenario involved into that. This is number one. In architecture also, when I was saying that, like out of the 10 passing architects, and I'm not talking about today, I'm talking about right from maybe the inception of a branch of architecture, not only in India, across the world. In the US also, out of the 6 graduates in architecture, 1 would be a registered architect. Now, this is a ratio. It doesn't matter. Basically, see, this corporate sort of a scenario has come as a latest phenomena, maybe last 10 years, whereupon the jobs are available, and we also know that what happens with the those who are into a computer engineers per se, or maybe IT engineers, and when they go into a corporate and they start talking about a package, and everyone is invariably, majority of them are handling only the Excel sheets. No. Any kind of a profession would require a sort of a patience, to go ahead. So there where the problem starts happening around. I have the examples now. I come to specifically women now. Okay, I have very specific examples known to me that they may not be exactly into architecture, but they are near to architecture. They are into design. They are into the social activism. They are into establishing their own NGOs through which combining the technology. So these all are the design fields, and they are working. But corporate, I mean, is like कि मैं choose क्या करता हूँ. My students out of 10, maybe 5 would be saying that campus interviews. Now she would agree with me that campus interviews could not be the solution basically in architecture. We talk about apprenticeship. In the law also you would talk about apprenticeship. A doctor could not be immediately starting a practice, maybe taking a training somewhere in a hospital or something, and it requires a time, at least 5 years after graduation. This is average time. Now, if you do not have that kind of a time to spend, for whatever reasons, male or female, then they will be actually going into some area whereupon they are capable of getting a sort of early income. Average payments to the graduate architects are not exceeding actually 10 to 15,000 rupees a month, which is very, very low. But this is what is happening. We are trying to find out the solution to it. Research avenues are now coming up. National education policy, which Rashmi was talking about, no, with that as such, you will find out that there are a lot of openings which will come up now. That is going to happen. That would happen, but it takes time. Yeah, it would come.
1 minute, can I take?
Yeah. I think that should be the last question because we are
I will
running
take
out
half
of
a
time.
minute, no problem.
So I think
Could have on the sidelines.
Please take a half a minute and then a minute to him.
1
Yeah.
minute. There's two things, two subjects, related subjects, architecture and landscape architecture. I'm NS Pradhan, by the way. लेडीज को लैंडस्केप आर्किटेक्चर में काम करते हुए देखा है. They do it very well and they have interest in ornamental horticulture, landscaping and all that. So can the lady who is doing landscape architecture and has interest in going towards main architecture without studying the subject on the, can she do it or how do you?
No, when we say, see, there are two parts of, when you say landscape architect, then actually there could be the horticulturists also who are doing it, and technically landscape architecture is an exception to architecture. I mean, as per the Architects Act. But horticulture, no, they do a landscape, maybe the principles of the landscape design could be a bit different in terms of understanding the technology and its interface with the built environment. So there where the question would come. So I may be capable of doing a landscape, but that same skill set could not be directly applied to architecture. So, but in national education policy, again, there would be the possibilities of lateral entries and lateral exits. Now the flexibility would be coming in, so possibly those who are interested could complete additional credits and possibly seek the admission at appropriate level. That may happen.
You can ask on the sidelines of this. We'll be starting.
Take a question from him, and that we would end then there.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
As Mr. Purohit is here, I would like anybody here to name two important fellowships for architecture. Two, only two. The Government of India as well as COA is part of Government of India, hasn't made an effort. We are talking about research, but research requires certain support. We do not have that. Architectural profession has no funding at all for research. And I'm ready to be questioned, challenged.
Okay, a bit of information. 6 months back, Council of Architecture has launched its research initiative, whereupon the research proposals are going to be initially funded to the level of 5 lakh rupees. This we intend to actually also extend that. So we said that 100 research fellowships would be given by Council of Architecture. There is a set method through which as such we are asking for this. So this has been launched. Okay, as an initiative. I understand that this 5 lakh rupees as a thing could not be adequate enough for certain projects, but at least the process has started. With that as such, I am going to propose it to Ministry of Education, through which and HECI is coming in. So when the Higher Education Council of India is going to come, is around the corner. Once that comes as such, there is going to be a separate sort of a wing through which the research would be funded.
So you have not announced it yet.
We have announced it.
So is it on the website?
It is on the website, of course. And we also received the proposals. To my mind, as such, about 35 proposals have been already received by us. Not only that, we also have launched the scheme for having our own study books. So I said that like 100 books, at least to begin with, of the Indian authors who are going to contribute in terms of the subjects which we are teaching with the intention of understanding Indian architecture. So these are the schemes which have been launched by council. Yes, prior to that, these were not there, but this has been launched by me 6 months back. So it is there with the full council's support.
That's one. Addenda to that is Indian Council for Social Science Research does not consider architecture as a social science.
See, the problem is, so architects could not be considered as a technocrats. Architects could not be considered as the part and parcel of the artists community. Architects could not be considered as a part and parcel of, now you are saying that the social councils. We have started with something. For example, I have just, I think 15-20 days back, signed a memorandum of understanding with AICT, All India Council for Technical Education, whereupon we are talking about a holistically integration of the entire systems. With the Ministry of Culture as such, we have started with taking our initiatives and we are running our programs. We were also part of the collaboratives. We were also part of the Binale and so on and so forth. So we have the initiative on that. Ministry of Social Justice, we have signed a MOU. And with them as such, we are working with this scenario. So I think in the days to come, see, architects, they are supposed to be master, I mean the jack of all, right? So this problem would come that you belong to this area or that area or that area, but I think the awareness is coming in and we are running the programs. I think we are short of the time. I understand that. Thank you very much. It has been a very, very lively discussion as such. I think everyone has a takeaway from it. Thanks to one and all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Desai and Professor Purohit, for accepting our invitation and sharing your thoughts, which sounded music to the ears. I now invite Commodore Kamalvalli to present Angvastram to both these distinguished speakers for their, as a token of appreciation and gratitude for their presence here.